It's when he swung it easy at three-quarter golf swings, and he pretty much hit his number all the time. Dude, but when he hit something full, he hit it 20 yards over the greens at times. He's like, what are you doing?
He's just smiley, happy, and a freakish athlete golf robot that's going to be right there winning majors for the next 10-plus years. It's amazing.
Did you say he was smiling or smiley?
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The Philadelphia 76ers, who are the second best team in this Eastern Conference by a mile when Joel Embiid is healthy. That's just what they are. So now, if Giannis isn't available, the Bucks would be dogs in the series.
He ain't sleeping on that air mattress anymore. He's got a regular king-size bed, a posturepedic, whatever they call it, a Sealy's, whatever they do, those things. He ready to roll. Denominating tonight.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on a Monday. Great to be back with you. 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. This is NewsWire exclusively on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. For the next hour, we got you covered on all the latest news, notes, information, sports betting activity, legality of sports betting going on across the country. For that, we bring in Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report. He's coming up a little bit later in the show. Latest on the NBA playoffs, Gilbert McGregor is here. We'll talk some NHL postseason as well. And by the way, the NFL draft is coming up Thursday night, folks. We got you covered here on SportsGrid. Mark Zinno is going to be with us, and we'll break down everything happening, the rumors, and everything going on over the weekend as well. So thanks for being with us here for our show here on this Monday morning. Let's get started with the NBA playoffs in case you missed it from last night. We'll do some recap and some preview for tonight's games as well. We got some activity going on, which could affect the games potentially tonight for those of you looking to potentially make a wager. But the bracket, of course, will tell the story here, and we've got the 8s and the 1 seeds facing off. It was not a great day for the Miami Heat. It was almost a great day for the New Orleans Pelicans. Phenomenal game, by the way, going right down to the wire here in last night's game. Tie game, 32 seconds left between New Orleans and Oklahoma City. Didn't expect this in game 1 of their series, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes to the paint and makes the shot and the foul. They take a 3-point lead. The final 94-92 as the Thunder take game 1 in this series. As I mentioned, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a MVP candidate this season. Not sure if he's going to win it, but was a candidate. 28 points, 11 for 24 from the field. Game-winning shot with 32 seconds left in the game. New Orleans comes up short. Their head coach, Willie Green, talked about some of the things they'll need to do going forward to get a win in Game 2.
It's not about what we need to do to free B.I. up. This is going to be playoff basketball. He's got to continue to play through it, have some gamesmanship out there, got to go to the free throw line a bit more. This is just what it's going to be. We're physical with them. They're physical with us. And that's a part of the game. That's a part of playoff basketball. Continue to play with force, play with speed, and get quality looks, take care of the ball.
Indiana Pacers were 1.5-point favorites going into their game at Milwaukee yesterday. Of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo did not play in the game yesterday. And by the way, for the Bucks, it did not matter. The Bucks just basically blew out the Pacers from start to finish, 109-94 as 1.5-point underdogs. Tyrese Halliburton in this playoff game. Only had 9 points on 7 shots. The story was Damian Lillard, who had 35 points with 6 3-pointers. This is the reason why they got him this offseason. So despite all the rumors that Lillard's not happy and things not going well for him, boy, he certainly was a factor in last night's game 1. And also yesterday talked about what it's like being back in the playoffs, something he says he's missed dearly.
Yeah, it was the last 2 years not being in the playoffs, it was it sucked. I was early vacations. Last year I went to Coachella. Like, I ain't never been able to go to Coachella. Like, it's just playing in the playoffs every year. So just having that long summer, it was like, man, I was over that. But being able to be in a playoff series on a championship team and a championship organization, knowing that we got an opportunity for it, I think that was the thing that I was looking forward to most.
Bucks take a 1-0 lead in the series. Speaking of taking leads, the Los Angeles Clippers did it to the Dallas Mavericks. This narrative painting that the Clippers can't win without Kawhi Leonard, boy, that was not true last night. Very impressive win for LA. 109-97 in the game yesterday. And the Beard, James Harden, back in action for the Clippers in the playoffs. 28 points, 8 assists on 8 for 17 from the field. Unfortunately for Dallas and Kyrie Irving, going to have to make some adjustments going into game 2 of this series. And Kyrie's certainly not one of the only ones unhappy with the performance by his team.
After the first half, we came into the locker room as a team and we talked about the things that we felt like we weren't doing and the things that we need to continue doing at a very high level. But it really centered around the foundational point of talking about physicality and this being the playoffs. A lot of guys aren't used to being here. A few young guys aren't used to being here, so they don't know what they can get away with and what the refs are going to call. So I think this was a great first test for us, and we obviously failed, and we came out with a loss. But I think there are some things we can take into game 2 as strengths that we can continue to push forward and utilize. And just not overthink it. Again, I talked about this a few weeks back. It's a series, not a time to lose confidence. We know our guys, some of my teammates are going to shoot better going into game 2. And we just want to continue to feed them confidence and see where we can control and then stop them on the offensive end.
Most people expect a long series between those two teams. We've got game 2s coming up tonight. The Cavaliers over the weekend defeated the Magic. Wasn't particularly close, 97-83. Same with the Timberwolves over the Suns, 120-95. The Knicks and 76ers will play again tonight. More on that in a minute. Of course, the Knicks took game 1. Nuggets defeated the Lakers in game 1, and Boston, no issue without Jimmy Butler. The Heat's sort of up against it going into the series as the 8 seed against the 1. Also a report coming this morning that Tyrese Maxey is ill and may not play tonight, according to Chris Haynes. And they'd be certainly up against it without Maxey. Also, Joel Embiid is questionable for this game tonight. Now, over the weekend, the RBC Heritage and the PGA Tour was played, and wouldn't you know, they had a delay because of weather, so they just finished up about 2 hours ago. And no surprise, Scottie Scheffler wins again. Scheffler has been absolutely on fire on the PGA Tour, winning the Masters, winning the RBC Heritage. Can he get a week off? Maybe that's the case this week. All right, let's get to some sports betting numbers. New York's weekly handle hits $487 million for the week ending April 14th, NCAA tournament. 8th highest handle generated by the state's 9 sports betting apps in 119 weeks since sports betting opened back in 2022. Also, no WBA boxing will be allowed to be bet in Ontario sportsbooks, according to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, banning all province sportsbooks for accepting wagers on the WBA sanctioned fights. And this is surrounding irregularities that took place during a December fight last year between Tellez and Navarro. So Canada acting, will the U.S. act as well? Over in the NHL playoffs yesterday, round 1, the Florida Panthers defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning. We have several games to preview coming up in our next segment. Joe Madden will talk about some of those games, including Boston back on the ice tonight. And as I mentioned, the last 5 events over the RBC Heritage, sort of incredible when you think about it. It's been a wonderful run for Scottie Scheffler. We'll see if he can keep it going. In Major League Baseball, congratulations to Shohei Ohtani. He breaks a record for the most major league home runs by a Japanese-born player. Number 176 in his career, breaking Hideki Matsui's record. 7th home run in 5 games. He is absolutely on fire for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Anthony Rendon, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Back on the IL again Saturday with a hamstring issue. 7 years, $245 million. He has not played more than 58 games in a season with the Angels, and he's going to have to get back on the field if he wants to break that this year. How about the Cleveland Guardians? 16 wins, best record in Major League Baseball with, I believe, the lowest payroll outside of Oakland in Major League Baseball again. So Cleveland just absolutely having a great year. The Naylor brothers doing a great job, pitching well. Congrats to Cleveland as well. Do have an afternoon baseball game to preview for you today. 1:05 Eastern, the Oakland A's and New York Yankees. Could be some seats available for this game because the A's only come to town once. 1:05 Eastern start. Over on FanDuel, as you can see, of course, the Yankees are going to be big favorites. It is J.P. Sears and Carlos Rodon. That is the pitching matchup. The total is 8 in this game today, this afternoon in the Bronx, 1:05 Eastern. For those of you who live in the New York, New Jersey, and tri-state area, head on over if you want to see the game tonight. But I have a feeling a lot of you are more interested in the NBA games tonight, which, of course, are the playoffs. Can the Knicks take Game 2 like they did Game 1 against the Philadelphia 76ers? Boy, Philly was really up against it in that game, losing Embiid for a period of time. Knicks pulled away late to cover. Although, if you watch the game, I don't know if you saw this, but with time expired, some guy for Philly threw up a half-court shot and made it. Thank goodness that didn't count. We'll preview tonight's game with Gilbert McGregor. Don't go away.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
He just tossed an air, like in a critical. You're up by 2 with 20 seconds left. You said, give me the ball, up LeBron James. You tossed an air ball. And there was AD under the bucket fighting everybody, and he ends up going to the free throw line. They use Tavares as a friggin' pinata tonight. Dude, I know you're old, but get it together. This is your last run at something, man. This is your career, bro. Don't go out like this. Oh, it's hard watching this.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
You're not going to get the Tiger Woods size audience. Because do you know where they went? They went to Caitlin Clark. That's where those people went.
What?
Those people are now going to the WNBA. Yeah. The fan that only watches what's hot, the fan, the casual who doesn't really like sports but likes to be involved in the in thing, they're watching
cooler discussion.
They're watching Caitlin Clark.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. I'm taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you for the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Catch the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's
yes!
how we end the show. That's how we end the show.
Oh, well, let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Time to preview tonight's games in the National Basketball Association. Some Game 2s in the NBA East and West. Gilbert McGregor is with us. Busy weekend for Gilbert. Several games on Saturday, Sunday. We got Monday coming here again. Gilbert, thanks for coming on NewsWire as we get ready to preview some of the games. Hopefully some competitive games over the next couple of days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had 6 blowouts or 5 or 6 blowouts this weekend. So let's get some close ones as the week gets going.
Yeah, and let's start off with the Philadelphia 76ers and New York Knicks. There's been a adjustment here over on FanDuel. First game, the Knicks were 3-point favorites. I think it moved to 3.5 now. This one's up to 5. I guess the adjustment is being made because of the health of Joel Embiid and now Maxi's issue with the illness. In fact, I've seen some places where this is off the board. I went on FanDuel just a short time ago. You can't even bet it because they don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, Philly can't win this game without those two. From what you saw from Embiid, he seems to be a guy that is going to play through stuff like he did in the second half of that game. I mean, I don't know. I'm sort of reading between the odds, and the line here tells me he's going to play tonight. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, Craig, it does feel like he's going to continue to play. The read I'm getting from Joel Embiid is that he cannot make his injury any worse, but it also can't get any better. It was a little bit of a nervous moment at the end of that first half when he had the self alley-oop off the backboard and then came down and looked just like he was experiencing a lot of pain. So I was pleased to see him back on the floor, but he certainly wasn't as effective in the second half as he was in that first half. And unless the Sixers can get huge contributions from guys like Kyle Lowry and Tobias Harris and Nicholas Batum and Buddy Hield, which is a lot for them, especially in a road game, I think the Knicks will take this one again. Jalen Brunson had a rough outing in game one. I expect him to bounce back and have a bigger game. And somebody else is going to step up for them. In game one, it was Josh Hart, Deuce McBride, and Mitchell Robinson. This game will be OG Anunoby and Dante DiVincenzo. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue this chess match as they go into game two.
Yeah, and interesting line, though, for me, Gilbert, because I think the higher this goes, I may be inclined to take Philadelphia here. The line is 5 now. The total is 207.5. And you're right. Brunson probably has a bigger game than he had in game one, but the 76ers really did not play all that well. And they were within a bucket, really, of covering this game. Maybe there was no doubt in the last minute of the game, Gilbert, that they were not going to win. I understand that. But that's not what this is about. This is about covering the spread. Would you lay the 5 tonight with New York again?
You know, I could see that happening. And the reason I can see that happening, I can see that close is because of Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse is a tactician on the sidelines for this Sixers team. Regardless of who he has suiting up, I think he can get the most out of those guys to keep this game close. We've seen it happen now with the play-in tournament win that they had over the Heat and in game one against this Knicks team. It's going to be a rock fight. They're going to force them to kind of play a game that they want them to play because they are limited. So I think it will, again, be a grinded out game, and they'll tend to stay close.
Yeah, let's take out the odds to win the series. I don't need to spend a lot of time on this because I think we probably see this the same way. If you're going to take the Sixers to win the series, you do it now. And if you want to take the Knicks, you wait, right? Like either you wait or you don't do it at all because it's minus 290 to win the series.
That sounds about right to me. You know, I think we saw a lot in game one. And again, just that the 76ers team probably is not going to have enough just because they're hobbled, because the player is at 60 or 70% of his final form or his MVP form, and that won't get it done. So unless you really, really believe in the other guys around them, I think you just stay put because it looks like this is the Knicks series to lose.
All right. Now, look, I don't know what else to say about the Denver Nuggets at this point. I honestly, I don't even think it's the Lakers' fault. Listen, they could have had a better regular season, Gilbert, and not had to play the Nuggets. That's all I can say here. But I think that whoever you threw in front of the Nuggets, probably in the first round of a team like LA, they're going to fall. That's what happened in game one. 7.5-point favorites again here in game two. Total 223.5. LeBron had a nice game. AD had a nice game. But there's just no defending some of the guys on Denver. Like I don't see much changing here. I hate to lay this amount of points, but I guess LeBron would have to have 50 points, or AD would have to go like 40-30 or 40-20, something like that. Otherwise, I can't take LA.
Game one of this series felt a lot like last year's conference finals, Craig, and that the overwhelming consensus of that series was that the Lakers don't have enough to contend with this Nuggets team when this Nuggets team is playing at that playoff level with Jokic, with Jamal Murray, with Michael Porter. It's just too much for the Lakers to deal with. Now, I don't think they'll get swept in this series. I think they'll figure some things out. They can get more from D'Angelo Russell. Can they get more from Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves? Because save for LeBron and AD combining for 80 or 90 points, they need their other guys to step up, and they need to find some answers for the Nuggets defensively. I don't think it happens tonight. I think that if the Lakers are going to make this a series, it will happen when the series swings back to Los Angeles. But in making it a series, it'll probably be pushing them to 6 games, if nothing else.
Yeah, fair enough. So the NBA is smart enough, Gilbert, to throw the first game of the 3 on the board tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern. And I mean, the first game was a complete dud, and the total set low again here. I don't know. I think the Magic are going to respond a little tonight, Gilbert. I don't know if they're going to win here, but they can't play any worse than they played in the first game. They're getting 5.5 tonight. Total 203. I don't know if the Magic wins tonight. I expect a little bit more in game 2 tonight. Do you?
This really feels like those type of games that they don't have a lot of eyes on them, and the Magic might catch a few people by surprise. This series on ESPN, and it was widespread, and everybody had their eyes on it. And the Magic had some growing pains of time on this playoff stage, so I expect them to be able to keep this close, and I wouldn't be completely surprised if they maybe shock some people and sneak a win in here, because they're learning on the fly here with a really young team and a young head coach. It's this first time in the playoffs as well.
Yeah. Last thing, real quick, Gilbert. 15 seconds here. Any chance you'd take the Magic to win this series? They're plus 285.
I don't think. I think that this is one of those times where young teams need to take their bumps and bruises. I think they can push this to maybe 6 games. I initially had the Cavs winning in 6, and I'm sticking with that just because the Cavs postseason experience.
All right, Gilbert. Appreciate you coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch up again later in the week or next week for more NBA playoff talk. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right, Gilbert McGregor with us. Coming up next, it's time to find out what's trending on our SportsGrid Sound Off segment. We're going to have some fun with this coming up next. Katie Stupak from our social media team will join us. Also, we'll hear what Coach Young has to say about the NBA playoffs and also preview the NHL tonight. More SportsGrid's NewsWire coming up next.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
He just tossed an air ball, like in a critical. You're up by 2 with 20 seconds left. He said, give me the ball, LeBron James, and you tossed an air ball. And there was AD under the bucket fighting everybody, and he ends up going to the free throw line.
They use Tavares as a friggin' pinata tonight. Dude, I know you're old, but get it together. This is your last run at something, man. This is your career, bro. Don't go out like this. Oh, it's hard watching this.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
You're not going to get the Tiger Woods size audience. Because do you know where they went? They went to Caitlin Clark. That's where those people went.
What?
Those people are now going to the WNBA. Yeah. The fan that only watches what's hot, the fan, the casual who doesn't really like sports but likes to be involved in the in thing, they're watching
cooler discussion.
They're watching Caitlin Clark.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. I'm taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Cast the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the
show.
show.
Well, let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's time now for our SportsGrid Sound Off, where we basically go around the horn to find out what's going on in the world of sports, social media, and in the NHL and NBA playoffs. Let's start off with social media and find out what's trending both on SportsGrid and online with Katie Stupak.
In case you missed it, here are some of the biggest stories trending on social. Joel Embiid limped out of MSG during Game 1 against the Knicks. He was taken to the locker room but was back on the court at the start of the third quarter. Embiid was also seen limping after the game. Game 2 will take place tonight at 7:30 p.m. at Madison Square Garden. Zhou Guanyu was seen in tears after the Chinese Grand Prix. Although he didn't win, it was a dream of his since he was a little kid to be there. Bears fans are getting extremely excited for the Caleb Williams era. The draft begins April 25th and his odds are minus 20,000 to be the first pick. SportsGrid NFL draft coverage begins Thursday at 7 p.m. The Bruins defeated the Toronto Maple Leafs 5-1. They haven't beaten the Bruins in a playoff series since 1959. LSU Gymnastics and Olivia Dunn won the national championship for the first time in program history. And Utah is getting their own NHL team. It's going to be named Utah something, but Smith Entertainment Group wants to make sure they get the name right. So it is going to take time, and they might even go into the season without a nickname.
Thanks very much, Katie. We'll check out what's trending on tomorrow's show as well. But some of the things that are trending, of course, are surrounding the NBA playoffs. And each and every day, if you don't know, we've got a show called The Early Line on our programming. And this morning, Coach James Young, who's one of our SportsGrid analysts, discussed some of what's surrounding in the NBA playoffs between the New York Knicks and Philadelphia 76ers, very specifically the injury to Joel Embiid and how it could potentially affect his playing style.
Well, listen, anytime you have one of the best players, if not the best player in the world in Joel Embiid, you got to be quaking your boots, Davis. I mean, but to me, I need to see where Embiid plays. Meaning, is he going to go to the perimeter like he did in the fourth quarter and more of the second half when he's being guarded by someone like Mitchell Robinson, or does he go inside into the low block? That's what I want to see, because Embiid got going early in the low block. Fourth quarter, he looked like he kind of fizzled out, went to the perimeter. Now, listen, I think Brunson's going to play markedly better. But you look at the other side, you can get better contributions from other players from the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's start with a guy that seems to disappear every postseason, and that's Tobias Harris. He must be much better in this game, maybe get a little bit more protection also from a guy like Nicholas Batum, who has playoff experience.
And obviously, for those of you thinking of wagering on this game tonight, tune in to Pharrell Coast to Coast at 3 o'clock Eastern, because after we're off the air, we'll get an injury update on Tyrese Maxey, who, as I mentioned about 10 minutes ago, in case you missed it, listed as questionable for this game with an illness. So Pharrell Coast to Coast has you covered on that game as well. Now, as far as the NHL is concerned, we've got several games today, including getting your look at Connor McDavid later tonight. Boston Bruins also in action. Plenty of puck action. Let's get to the very latest and give you a preview. Here for that is Joe Madden.
The ice is going to be hot tonight. We have game 1 between the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights, the reigning Stanley Cup champs. Now, the Dallas Stars, though, are the favorite at minus 130, and I'm going to put my money there. You look at this team so incredibly deep with 9 players getting 50-plus points on the season. And Jake Ottinger, in the playoffs, well, he becomes unstoppable in goal for the Dallas Stars. Then looking at the second game 1 that we will see between the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers, I do think this is a player prop game for me. I still don't trust Stuart Skinner in net for the Edmonton Oilers. So I will take Kempe here for that anytime goal for the LA Kings. But you know you have to circle Connor McDavid to come out nice and strong. Give me Connor McDavid for the assist for the Edmonton Oilers. We'll see game 2 between the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I do think we see an explosive first period like we did in game 1. Give me the over 1.5 there. And then the Islanders versus the Carolina Hurricanes, another disrespectful line for the Islanders. Give me the Islanders plus a 2.5 on the puck line. They have every opportunity of keeping it tight in a lower scoring game.
All right, thanks very much, Joe. And of course, you can follow Joe on social media, as well as all of our hosts online on X, formerly known as Twitter, at SportsGrid and at SportsGrid TV. So make sure you head on over to social media. By the way, you can follow me on there. If you have any questions, comments, or, basically anything regarding our show here on NewsWire, let me know at Craig Mish, at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV, at SportsGrid Radio, I should mention as well. As Joe mentioned, we've got the NHL tonight. As Katie mentioned, Thursday night, right here exclusively on SportsGrid. Those of you who are interested in the upcoming NFL draft, there's so many different opportunities and positions to take. We have you covered Thursday night exclusively for the NFL draft coverage right here on SportsGrid. All right, coming up next, Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report is with us. The very latest on the National Basketball Association and what to do about this Jonte Porter situation. Mike has some opinions on that. I'll tell you what they are next.
people that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
He just tossed an air ball, like in a critical. You're up by 2 with 20 seconds left. He said, give me the ball, LeBron James. He tossed an air ball. And there was AD under the bucket fighting everybody, and he ends up going to the free throw line.
They use Tavares as a friggin' pinata tonight. Dude, I know you're old, but get it together. This is your last run at something, man. This is your career, bro. Don't go out like this. Oh, it's hard watching this.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
You're not going to get the Tiger Woods size audience. Because do you know where they went? They went to Caitlin Clark. That's where those people went.
What?
Those people are now going to the WNBA. Yeah. The fan that only watches what's hot, the fan, the casual who doesn't really like sports but likes to be involved in the in thing, they're watching
cooler discussion.
They're watching Caitlin Clark.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. I'm taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you for the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Catch the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the show. That's how we end the show.
Oh, well, let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Last week we found out that Jonte Porter will no longer play a game ever again in the National Basketball Association. He's been banned for a year for giving out information that pertained to his own player props, which subsequently were bet with parlays and such and things of that nature. And what's really fascinating about this story, as we bring in Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report, is that the NBA analysts on the NBA shows are not shying away from this at all. And I can appreciate that because generally speaking, Mike, I thought that this would be an open and shut case, and people like Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley wouldn't even be talking about it, and that would be it. But that's not the case. So that's what has me impressed since last week, to hear the different opinions on this situation. Mike, thanks for coming on. I'm sure that that's part of the discussion right now.
Yeah, Craig, like you said, you went over the nuts and bolts, right, last week, like everybody else, of what he did. I think the more interesting thing is what comes out of this, right? And I was talking to Doug Smith, who covers the Raptors for the Toronto Star, on a separate podcast, and we both agreed the NBA has to do something in terms of offering player props, or in this case, prohibiting them in terms of what players are offered. Max players, your all-star players can be offered, but those lower money players, we don't know exactly how you're going to do this. Is it going to be all rookies? Is it going to be guys that make less than, 8 figures? Something to that extent where, players that may have a reason to do this for monetary gain, they aren't allowed to be bet at these legal sports books. Yes, you potentially risk the idea of them going offshore, like the college player props. People can't bet them here because they're not legal at our books. Where else am I going to want to bet them? But it's just such a low percentage that the legal books can say, well, it's only 1% of our, and then 99% is elsewhere. So that's something interesting. And then just the idea of the NBA obviously caring about this issue very much for integrity reasons, but then you've got all these teams being fined for improper injury reporting. I mean, what are we doing here? These fines aren't doing anything. Whether they have to be harsher or a third party has to monitor them, the teams send it into the third party, whether it's U.S. Integrity or somebody else, and they clear it with an independent doctor or whatever the case may be. There's got to be something done here because that's really unacceptable to me. Just as somebody who has covered the NBA for a long time, and you've got the ticket buying public, you've got your media partners, you've got the betting public. The NBA has shown in various instances they don't really care about these people. Whether it comes to tanking, star players sitting in national televised games, they've just had this track record where they haven't cared about the people that are essentially, paying their salaries. Maybe fans don't do it directly, but through the media deals, all these people that come and form a piece of that pie have been screwed to an extent for some way or another. So, yeah, I just think, we'll see what the player prop issue is. And then again, with the injury reporting, got to be better. There's got to be a better way to do this. And the NBA needs to come down harder on these teams that don't follow the rules here, because the lines are going to be affected, and there's people that can have that inside information and give it to the wrong people.
Yeah, I mean, to start off with, any player on a 10-day contract, it's pretty easy right there to just, start there and kind of build your way up. And we're going to talk about the college game with prop betting, how this could potentially, I think, start the ball rolling, so to speak, and end this in some way, because the NBA is going to have to adjust this. And maybe too late right now in the playoffs, you would assume there'd be no indiscretions during the playoffs. But I think going into next year, Mike, it does make some sense for more regulation. Okay, so the NFL feels like they regulated themselves pretty well with this incident with the sports betting that happened last year. And a lot of the players were reinstated, and some even returned at the end of last year. But there's one player named Isaiah Rodgers, Mike, who was not reinstated for sports betting allegations in the NFL. Well, what gives here? Why was Rodgers not reinstated?
Yeah, Craig, that's something I think that, the NFL hopefully will provide more context on. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting last week that, Rodgers' case is still under review. Why? I'm guessing, as ESPN kind of laid out and LSR confirmed, he bet on his own team. And then he also made that $1,000 prop on the running back for the Colts, who he played with before signing the futures contract with the Eagles, Jonathan Taylor, over-under on rushing yards that he won. And so, those are bets where you really shouldn't be betting on, obviously, players on your own team. And then you shouldn't be betting on or against your own team, as, Jonte Porter found out betting against the Raptors in a parlay, which was incredible and makes the league look terrible. There's just bad optics all around there. So, yeah, I mean, what does the league need to do? Do they need to find out more information on the situation? Yeah, be interesting what NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell rules here as to why, Rodgers is different than the 5 guys who were reinstated after the season-long bans. Again, something you hope, going forward, right? The NFL has really determined that it needs to educate its players. It's done it on multiple occasions. We'll certainly do so again during training camp, mini camp, whatever they do before the season starts, to make sure players are aware. We told you, and then maybe you have a guy or two, because that always happens, no matter what you tell players or workplace or wherever. You're always going to get somebody that goes off the reservation and does something they shouldn't, but that, the players are informed. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. If you're, on that team facility, whether they change that rule or not, you can't bet on these games, where if you're in the parking lot or on the street outside the facility, you can. That's something the players have tried to fight back against. We'll see what comes of that. But yeah, this will be interesting with Rodgers to see, whether he needs to serve more of a suspension because of those specific things. Hopefully the NFL provides some more details on that.
Yeah, hopefully before training camp opens, which would make sense. But we still have time, and I don't think that this is going to happen during the NFL draft. So perhaps after that in the month of May. Okay, so with the next opportunity, is, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, to bet on collegiate athletes in a significant way, that would be the college football season that will begin around the end of August. So we'll really have a lot of work to do here to figure out if people are going to be able to bet or not on collegiate athletes in football, as the state of New Jersey weighs in on this. And Mike, over the next few months, I don't think that some states are going to have legalized sports college player props and some not. I mean, I feel like some of the states are just going to step up like they have been and say no. And I think everyone's going to follow one way or the other, yes or no. And that's going to be the end of it come college football season.
Yeah, Craig. So in New York, for example, they had banned this from the outset when they launched legal sports betting in January 2022. You couldn't bet on player props. So they, sent a letter to NCAA President Charlie Baker lauding him for telling everybody else to do the same. And we've seen a lot of jurisdictions, right? Ohio, Maryland, Vermont have decided to ban college player props. Louisiana as well, introducing legislation there. So New Jersey, with Senator Kristen Corrado, introduced a bill a couple weeks ago that would ban proposition sports bets on the student athletes in New Jersey. And she said, well, it's not really it's not a conservative issue. It's not a liberal issue. It's something everybody can get behind because, again, what's been the main reason for this? For the NCAA side, obviously, is the threats that these athletes have been getting from losing bettors, maybe the vile things they hear on the court or the field while they're playing. So, yeah, I mean, it's, something that is going to be looked at. And I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, if this passes. Again, this is just an easy win for the legal sports betting operators. As they said in Ohio, it's a very small percentage, maybe a little over 1% was these proposition bets on student athletes in Ohio. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Garden State follow the same path. And, again, this is definitely something that's going to be under the microscope. I think until every jurisdiction finally gets rid of this. And at least, maybe you have the over-under, the total, the spread, all that. But, this is something that wouldn't be surprising for it to go away. And New Jersey should be the next state to get rid of it.
Yeah, and I guess, Mike, really the point of all of this is, as you mentioned, in Ohio specifically, and again, I mean, maybe you do have the numbers, but it doesn't sound like college player props are a heavily bet thing. So why wouldn't FanDuel, DraftKings, all of these companies just get together universally as opposed to like doing this state by state? Because in the end, it doesn't feel like one state should have legal sports betting and others not. But that's a story for another day. But as far as the props is concerned, this would just seem to be a company-wide thing. Just so much easier to say, hey, look, for the integrity of the game, let's just do away with a small percentage of our revenue. It's so small.
100% agree, Craig. I think this is a layup for the operators. They, like you said, they should just come out and say, we don't want this anymore. To get that PR win at least. And like you said, 1% of the total handle in these states is this bet. I mean, yes, you risk the offshore, but, PR win for the books, easy move. I think they should all get rid of it.
Yeah, I think the books will probably have to act at some point this summer. All right, Mike, great to catch up with you again. Thanks for coming into the studio. We'll see you next week.
Thanks so much, Craig. Take care. Have a great week.
All right, Mike Mazzeo, Legal Sports Report. We'll preview the NFL Draft with Mark Zinno coming up next.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
He just tossed an air ball, like in a critical. You're up by 2 with 20 seconds left. He said, give me the ball, LeBron James. He tossed an air ball. And there was AD under the bucket fighting everybody. And he ends up going to the free throw line.
They used Tavares as a friggin' pinata tonight. Dude, I know you're old, but get it together. This is your last run at something, man. This is your career, bro. Don't go out like this. Oh, it was hard watching this.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
You're not going to get the Tiger Woods size audience. Because do you know where they went? They went to Caitlin Clark. That's where those people went.
What?
Those people are now going to the WNBA. Yeah. The fan that only watches what's hot, the casual who doesn't really like sports but likes to be involved in the in thing, they're watching
cooler discussion.
They're watching Caitlin Clark.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. Taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you for the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Cast the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's how we end the show. That's how we end the show.
Oh, well, let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
We've got exclusive coverage for you of the upcoming NFL Draft this Thursday night, and so a few days left to sort of go through the rumors, the odds movement, and Mark Zinno, of course, who's all over SportsGrid during that time, is going to be following them for us, tell us what he thinks about some of them, maybe some positions, of course, for the upcoming NFL Draft as well. Mark, great to have you back once again here on NewsWire. Always a fun time, Thursday night, and with sports betting being legal over the last couple of years, it seems like every year, FanDuel, DraftKings, so many different options and positions to take during the draft on Thursday.
Yeah, it's probably why odds makers hate the draft, because they don't really win money on it. I mean, you talk to any odds maker, any bookmaker out there will tell you that it's hard for them to win money on the draft because, look, the markets are not as tight. They're nowhere near as tight as an NFL game or even an NBA game. And so there's a lot of flexibility. And I would argue, and I've said this before, that odds makers probably have better access to information at 10 a.m. Eastern on a Sunday about a football game than they do in the weeks leading up to the NFL draft, because there's so much white noise. There's so much other rumors out there and everything else. And, the money in this team comes late and nobody bets the other side. And it usually ends up going out that way. So I would tell people, be smart about it. But, if you see steam, probably tail it, because it's usually going to end up being the right side in certain scenarios here. And you're not going to lose much.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I mean, really, Mark, in the end, what you're betting on in the NFL draft is someone's opinion. You're betting on an opinion of something in sports, which is rare, not an outcome, but an opinion. So here's my opinion. There are no locks. There are no sure things. But to me, given the steam, as you said, and the helium of quarterbacks in the NFL draft, I mean, you tell me how the number of quarterbacks in the NFL draft is not over this number of 4.5. And I know the risk is immense here. And I would never recommend laying a minus 250. I mean, you got to be crazy to do it. But if there ever felt like anything to start off with, Mark, to tell you that I think something is going to happen, this would have to be it for me.
Well, I think it is a certainty that Caleb Williams is going number one. I think that. I mean, regardless whether it's the Bears or somebody else, I think we feel pretty confident in him. But I agree with you. And this is what odds makers are left down to, is putting stuff like minus 250 out there as a line to deter you from betting on it heavily so they don't get leveraged against it, when in reality, it doesn't feel like there's not going to be 5 quarterbacks taken. I think you can get as many as 4 in the first 5, if not 4 in a row, to open the NFL draft. And at that point in time, with the 50-year option being such a kind of consolation prize of jumping back into the first round later on to go get a quarterback, I don't know how you don't get that 5th guy taken. Now, exactly when and where that happens is obviously up to some conjecture, but I agree with you. It's hard for me to not see 5 quarterbacks going round 1.
Yeah, I would agree. One of them will be J.J. McCarthy, and we don't know where, but he seems to be the big wild card, at least among the first 3 picks, as you mentioned, not Caleb Williams as much at 1. There is some movement on McCarthy potentially at 2. His total draft position going into the Thursday night event, I believe it's still at 5.5. Over is plus 124, under is minus 166. My feeling isn't as strong as it's going to be about the total quarterbacks, but it does seem to be at this point all of the draft helium. I mean, McCarthy, you may remember, Mark, going into the end in the championship last year, there were some people who thought he wasn't a first round quarterback now, potentially the 2nd pick overall in the draft.
Yeah, winning a national title certainly helps inflate your draft stock, that's for darn sure. But I really think, a lot of people aren't saying this. I think the Patriots are the linchpin in round 1. Because their GM has openly said, hey, we're open for business. We'll trade with anybody. We'll move. We have so many pieces we need. We'll move around. So whereas a lot of people think that, the Cardinals may trade, I think the Patriots, as much as they're quarterback hungry, may trade. And if they do that, and let's say the Vikings move into that spot and grab J.J. McCarthy, well, then there is also now a higher premium on getting the last quarterback at the 4th pick, in which the Cardinals may end up trading out because they need a ton of assets. Like, I genuinely can see 4 quarterbacks going in the first 4 picks. I don't think it's all that crazy, which would be interesting, because then number 5 gets opened up, where I think the Chargers are at 5, who don't need a wide receiver. Maybe they do. But, then Marvin Harrison all of a sudden is the blue chip prize of the draft. So, the Patriots, to me, hold all the cards here. The Commanders are not trading out of number 2. That much I feel pretty confident on. They will select number 2. But I think the Patriots trading out at number 3 is a very live possibility. And if that happens, then, we could see some things shake out we didn't expect.
Yeah, Mark, how many franchises in the history of pro sports haven't had a chance to rebuild in 25 years? Like, this is the Patriots' chance to do that. I'm sort of with you, man. Like, I kind of think that they just get picks for next year, like play it like Houston did, and take your year off. At least that's the way that I view it here. Maybe they don't love one of these quarterbacks.
They still have a quarterback on the roster, right? Even if they're not going to use them, they still have quarterbacks that have NFL experience, game experience on the roster. So it's not like they're completely devoid of options. So I'm with you. It wouldn't surprise me if they passed on a quarterback.
Yeah, me too. How about the Cardinals here? Marvin Harrison Jr., Mark, 20 years ago would have been the 1st pick overall in the NFL draft. We're not doing that anymore. It's always a quarterback. He's minus 240. to be the number 4 overall pick. So dare I say, is that potentially a steal for the Cardinals here, or could they take a quarterback? Although they said they're not going to do it, right?
Well, again, is it going to be the Cardinals taking at number 4? Because depending on how the first 3 go, there may be a team that wants to jump up and grab him. And if you're the Cardinals, it's like, well, we have a ton of needs, right? We're not just one wide receiver away from winning the NFC West. That's not the case. Even at quarterback, you have to be a little bit, unsecure. I mean, could it be that they move back 2 or 3 picks to somebody else who really wants them to settle for the term of Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors? Like, are you really settling? Some people would tell you they're not. They're still in the same position. So it kind of just depends on what they want to do. I don't know that it's a lock that Arizona ends up drafting it for.
All right, let's get to the Giants. 2 years ago, they sort of faked their way into a good season. Kind of hurt them. Last year, they had a bad season. They're number 5 overall. Any thoughts on where they pick?
I think they are a prime candidate to trade back in at the end of the first round and go snag a quarterback. I think that's where they are. I still think they have enough needs where they're drafting that they probably shouldn't be taking a quarterback there, given they're playing Daniel Jones. But sneak back into the end of the first round, the optics of him sitting a year seem a little bit more palpable if Daniel Jones could still play.
Yeah, great stuff, Mark. It does seem like a lot of trades were headed toward that on Thursday night. Once again, thanks for appearing on the show. I know you'll be very busy leading up. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back with some stories to end the show, including some issues in the water in Paris. We'll be right back.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is his starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
He just tossed an air ball, like in a critical. You're up by 2 with 20 seconds left. He said, give me the ball, up LeBron James. He tossed an air ball. And there was AD under the bucket fighting everybody, and he ends up going to the free throw line.
They used Tavares as a friggin' pinata tonight. Dude, I know you're old, but get it together. This is your last run at something, man. This is your career, bro. Don't go out like this. Oh, it's hard watching this.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
You're not going to get the Tiger Woods size audience. Because do you know where they went? They went to Caitlin Clark. That's where those people went.
What?
Those people are now going to the WNBA. Yeah. The fan that only watches what's hot, the fan, the casual who doesn't really like sports but likes to be involved in the in thing, they're watching
cooler discussion.
They're watching Caitlin Clark.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
So I turned it off. I got my sweat done, and I'm leaving. I'm taking my money. I'm going home, and I don't want to talk to you the rest.
Oh, yes!
There it is.
6-3. Cast the over. The over is hit. The Padres are our heroes.
That's
yes!
how we end the show. That's how we end the show.
Oh, what? Let's just sign off. Let's just call it a show.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As we mentioned, afternoon baseball coming your way on this Monday between Oakland and New York. The Yankees huge favorites this afternoon. They're playing that game in the Bronx. Yesterday, boy, it's something that you don't see very often happen in a Major League Baseball game, and it even could have potentially affected the outcome of the game and even the winner of the game. Is in the bottom of the 9th inning, a player on the Colorado Rockies, in fact, I know him pretty well, played for the Marlins last year. His name is Jacob Stallings. He is their catcher. Stallings hit an absolute bomb to left field. It went, I don't know. I mean, you see the picture there. I know it's kind of hard to see if you have a small screen, but it sort of looked like it was going over the fence, and a fan reached out at the game in Denver and interfered with the ball. So Stallings, who hit the ball, was just basically standing on second base because it looked like the ball had come back into play. And inevitably, what would have been called a home run and a walk-off home run to end the game was called back for fan interference. And because, of course, that happened in this case, the player who hit the ball is out. Yeah, that's true. That's what happened. So the good news coming out of this, out of all of it, is even though I'm not sure if the umpires got it right or wrong on the review, I mean, that's to be determined. And it was really tough, by the way, to see from the angles whether or not the defender could have caught the ball. There's no question that he interfered. The good news is for the Rockies, and there isn't a lot of good news over the course of their season, as you know, with one of the worst records in the National League, that the Rockies did end up winning the game in extra innings. But poor Jacob Stallings, who could have launched a home run in Colorado. Note to fans, by the way, it's really cool to catch a home run ball when the ball has gone over the fence. And in this case, I don't know. It sort of looked like maybe he was over and it came back in, but close enough to call. And unfortunately for this fan, he'll be on TV for the rest of his life and on social media looking like a pretty foolish guy. Okay, now $1.5 billion was spent to clean up the water in France. And the reason why they did this in Paris is because along the river, they have so many events coming up for the Olympics where people will rent kayaks and they will have swimming races and things of that nature. But unfortunately, with all of the money that has been spent to clean up the water, they've been unable to do so. In fact, there is a chance that people will not want to go even into the river at all, even on kayaks, because of the bacteria that is still in the water in Paris. Now, again, when you spend $1.5 billion for what we would call, I guess, like reparations, things to clean up the city, the area, the country, and you're still not able to do this, it's sort of unfortunate. So between now and they still have a few months to figure this out, there's still plastic in the water. And in some of the cleanup efforts, they have brought these kayaks in and thrown these things in the water to pick all of the dirt up and all the things that are in there. But thus far, they've still been unable to do so. Now, the question is, will they have to cancel some of the exterior events that are going on in Paris during the Olympics? Still to be determined. But sort of crazy here that you can spend this kind of money and you can't get things right, although we have seen this happen at Olympic Games before. So good luck to France. Good luck to Paris. We'll see if they figure it out. Also, as Mark Zinno mentioned just a few minutes ago, good luck to the odds makers who are trying to figure out how to make the odds for the upcoming NFL draft. In fact, one of the head guys who makes the odds over at Circa Sportsbook told Fox Sports that this is their least favorite event, essentially, to have to make the odds for, as I mentioned, because sports bettors are betting on somebody else's opinion. There are no facts. There are no games. There are no plays. There are no outcomes. So it's based on rumors and innuendo. And essentially, maybe this means that there is an opportunity for some of you to make up money on somebody else's opinion of a player that's an executive in the National Football League. So with that being said, maybe there's a chance for you to do so. So check us out all week long here on SportsGrid for our opinions as to which way the draft may go. In fact, we have a special for you coming up on Thursday night, and I believe Friday as well, on the first round and beyond of the upcoming NFL draft. It is Thursday, a little bit over 72 hours away. I hope you can be a part of it. Check it out over at SportsGrid and follow us on social media at SportsGrid TV, and SportsGrid Radio as well. Thanks again to all of our guests for coming on the show. Mark Zinno, of course, who appears all throughout the SportsGrid network. And also thanks to Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report and Gilbert McGregor from Sporting News. Our producer of the show today, of course, is Frank, and I'm Craig Mish. Coming up next, we have the early line at the top of the hour, followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast, and then all of your action in Major League Baseball this afternoon and previews of all of the NBA games and NHL with Scott Farrell at 3 o'clock Eastern right here on SportsGrid. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, for our next edition of the show. Until then, remember, it is smarter to be on SportsGrid. Hopefully you have a great day and a great night, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow for our next edition of the show, exclusively at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, right here on NewsWire. Have a great day, everyone. See you then.